Marriage is easy. Yes, I said it. Marriage is very easy. If two people understand love, if two people are willing to be patient, if two people are ready to grow together, there is nothing hard about it.
Our pastor used to say it every single time he held the microphone. It didn't matter what the program was, whether Sunday service, couple seminar, youth convention, even burial service, somehow, someway, it would enter. Marriage is easy, not manageable, not something you grow into. Easy. He would say it with confidence that made you question your own life. The kind of confidence that made you feel like if your own relationship was hard, then maybe you were the problem. He would laugh after saying it. That confident laugh that would echo through the whole auditorium. If two people can actually work together, if two people can communicate, if two people understand love and patience, marriage is very easy. And the church would respond like they had been waiting for that line. Right on, Pastor. Hallelujah. Preach, Pastor. People clapped. Some shouted. Some smiled. But not everybody agreed. You could see it in their faces. That small hesitation. That quiet discomfort. But nobody said anything. Because who wants to challenge a man that seems to have everything figured out? That man was Pastor Daniel. The Upper Room Collective, a church that was not small. It was one of those modern churches in Abuja that looked more like a conference center than a place of worship. Glass everywhere, bright lights, large screens, cold air that made you forget you were even in Nigeria. People dressed well, very, very well. You would think there was a fashion show every Sunday or every time there was a meeting in church. Cars in the parking lot looked like they belonged in music videos. Everything about the place spoke success, and at the center of it all was Pastor Daniel. Young, stylish, early 40s, but moving like someone who understood young people more than they understood themselves. His sermons did not stay inside the church. Before service would end, clips were already online. People were posting his words like quotes from a prophet. Hashtag marriage is easy if you marry right by Pastor Daniel. That line alone would trend. People believed him, not just because he spoke well, but because they thought he was living it. One thing about Pastor Daniel, marriage was not just something he preached, it was already part of him. It was like the topic was following him around everywhere he went. It did not matter what the program was. If he was invited to Lagos for a business summit, people would be sitting down expecting to hear about money, growth, investment. He would start very well. He would talk about discipline, focus, structure. Then, somehow, slowly, he would enter it. He would say, you can build a successful business, but if your marriage is not right, everything will collapse. People would laugh immediately. Some would look at each other like, here we go again. Then, in Ghana, during a deliverance program, people came expecting serious prayers. The atmosphere was already charged. People crying, some on the floor. Then Pastor Daniel took the microphone and said, your deliverance is not complete if your marriage is not intact. Even the choir member paused. People laughed in the middle of deliverance. That was how bad it had gotten. Even in his own church, it became something people started predicting. Someone would nudge their friend. Wait for it. 5 minutes into the sermon, no matter the topic, he would find his way there. Healing, marriage, finance, spiritual growth. It even became funny. But behind the laughter, something else was happening. Pressure. Young people started feeling like they were behind in life. Girls would sit in church calculating their age. Boys would feel like they were not serious. Some rushed into relationships. Some rushed into marriage. Because, according to Pastor Daniel, it was easy. So if it was hard for you, then maybe you were the problem. And the worst part was when people finally gathered courage to talk. During counseling sessions, that was where things got messy. There was one young couple. They came one evening. The lady spoke softly to Pastor Daniels, and she said, my husband doesn't listen to me. Her husband said, Pastor, she complains too much. They left feeling seen, feeling heard. That Sunday, Pastor Daniel stood on the altar and said, "There are some women that complain too much and destroy their homes." The woman froze in her seat. The example was too direct, too familiar. They never came back. Another couple, but older this time, over 20 years in marriage, they opened up about money issues, family pressure, the real things happening in their home. That same week in church, Pastor Daniel said, some couples after many years still do not understand financial unity. The man stared straight ahead. The woman looked down. They stayed for a while, but something had already broken. Trust. Because in Upper Room Collective, your pain could become content, and Pastor Daniel did not even see it as wrong. To him, he was teaching, helping, correcting, but to them, he was exposing. Mrs. Rachel Daniel, wife to Pastor Daniel, always calm, always composed, always smiling. When people stopped her after service and said, "Mama, your husband is amazing. Your marriage must be beautiful," she would smile and say, "Oh my goodness, thank you very much. We bless God. We bless the name of God." And that was enough. Nobody looked deeper. Nobody asked questions. Because from the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside that house, it was not perfect. Not even close. Rachel was tired. Not the kind of tired you sleep and wake up from. The kind that sits inside your chest and refuses to leave. She noticed everything. The things people did not see. The way her husband spoke about marriage like it was theory. The way he did not listen when she spoke. The way things were slowly falling apart in that house. But she kept smiling because that was her role. At least, that was what it had become. Their son Emeka was in university, final year. He was living double life. Inside church, he was a perfect leader, well-dressed, soft-spoken. Girls admired him. After service, you would see small girls forming around him. "Brother Emeka, please pray for me. Brother Emeka, can you advise me?" He would smile, talk gently, quote scripture. Then later that same night, he would be with his friends, Toby and Adamu, laughing, smoking, passing jokes. "Guy, you too like girls," one of them would say. He would laugh. "You know, say I know they carry last." They would talk about girls like it was nothing. Who he was texting, who he was seeing, who was easy. Sometimes they would even encourage him. He started gambling too. Small at first. Betting, losing, winning, chasing losses, smoking behind the house, spraying his body before entering the house, walking into church like nothing had happened. He was the leader of his school fellowship. Everybody respected him. If you saw Emeka outside, you would think this was a well-raised young man. But that was outside. Inside, he was something else. He had a girlfriend nobody knew, not even his parents. The girl was on scholarship from the church. Her parents worked in the church. Her life was tied to that family in ways she could not escape. And Emeka knew that. One day, he saw her talking to a boy in school. Just talking, nothing more. That evening, he called her into his car. Before she could explain anything, he slapped her. Not once, more than once. His voice was low but angry. "Who gave you the right to talk to another guy?" She tried to explain that it was her classmate, that they were discussing an assignment. But Emeka did not listen. After everything, he softened his voice and said, "You know I love you. Do not make me angry." The next day, he bought her a phone and apologized. But the cycle still continued. She could not leave because he had already told her what would happen if she did. The scholarship would disappear. Her family would suffer. So she stayed and kept quiet. His friends would tease him saying, "That's your scholarship girl. She no fit go anywhere. She is yours for life." Ada Daniel, their daughter, was not different. At home, she looked like a normal teenager. Quiet, playful sometimes, always with her phone. But in school, she was something else. She bullied people. She teased, manipulated, and experimented with friends. Always careful to hide it because everyone assumed the pastor's daughter could do no wrong. There was a girl she targeted, a small girl, quiet. She would say, "If you do not bring money tomorrow, do not come to school." The girl would cry and nod. Ada would smile. She would say, "Good girl." At home, she would come back and say, "Daddy, Mommy, school was fine today." Dinner in that house was always quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that is not peaceful. One evening, Rachel spoke. She said, "Emeka, who were you shouting at last night?" He immediately defended himself. "No one, no one. It is nothing." She turned to Ada. "Your teacher called." Ada froze immediately, and Pastor Daniel asked casually what the teacher said. Rachel looked at him and responded. She said Ada has been bullying other children. Ada denied it immediately. "No, that girl is lying. This is not the first time." Rachel said. Rachel tried to correct her. Pastor Daniel would wave it off and say, "Children will be children." That sentence became his answer to everything, and that was how everything was handled: ignored, dismissed, covered. Until one night, Rachel said something that changed everything. "Emeka hit someone." There was silence. Pastor Daniel asked, "Who told you?" She said, "I saw the messages." He paused, then said, "I think you are just exaggerating." "Do not exaggerate." That was the moment something broke inside her. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. That was the beginning of her leaving. But nobody knew, because outside, Pastor Daniel was still preaching, still saying marriage is easy, still using people's private struggles as examples in church. People started noticing, not openly, but quietly. Whispers started. People saying things like, "Have you noticed something? I heard something about the son, the daughter too, and the wife. Have you seen her recently?" Then, one Sunday, Pastor Mrs. Rachel didn't come to church. That was strange. People noticed, not immediately, but slowly. Second Sunday, she still did not come. Third Sunday, fourth Sunday, and for 2 months, she was still not seen in church. Now, people started talking. "Where is Mama?" Pastor Daniel continued as if nothing happened, but something was off. He did not mention marriage. In fact, he stopped mentioning marriage in his sermons. He stopped granting invites from other churches. That was when people knew something was wrong. That was when everything started to fall apart. What came out next? Nobody was ready for it. Mama had not been seen for weeks. A whole Pastor Mrs. Rachel Daniel. Wow! At first, it did not look serious. People asked casually after service, "Where is Mama?" Pastor Daniel would smile like everything was under control. "She is fine. She just needs some time. She's resting." If they pressed further, he would adjust it and say, She traveled actually. She's taking a break. She will soon be back." Different answers, different days. Same calm face. He stopped accepting invitations outside the church. No conferences, no guest ministrations. For a man that used to be everywhere, who liked taking family pictures every Sunday and posting them on social media with hashtags like the Daniels family, family over everything. That was strange. People noticed. Then, they started asking the children, "What of Mama? What of your mommy?" And Emeka and Ada would respond, "She is fine, we thank God. She just needs rest, that's all." That was all they said, nothing more. Online, it got worse. People began to ask under Ada's post, "Where is your mom? Is everything okay at home?" At first, she ignored it. Then, she reduced posting. Then, she stopped completely. But inside the house, the truth was different. Rachel did not leave in one day. She left in pieces. Small things first. A few clothes missing. A box gone. Shoes no one noticed. Nobody paid attention. Pastor Daniel was not paying attention either. He was busy. Always busy. The house was full, but nobody was watching. Until one morning, he opened the door to her personal closet and it was empty. Not half empty, not scattered. Completely empty. Jewelry, shoes, clothes, bags, scarves, beret, hats, all gone. That was when he asked everyone at home about her whereabouts. The staff exchanged looks. One of them said, "Mama said she was traveling." They thought he knew. They thought it was normal. That was what she told them. that she would be back. That evening, they tried calling her. Her number was not reachable. Later, it stopped going through completely. That was when the silence in the house changed. But outside, nothing changed. They kept covering, kept answering, kept acting like everything was normal until it wasn't. The first Monday in the third month after she left, a video dropped on the internet. A content creator, a young man who had been attending the church quietly, watching, observing, he started speaking calmly. He said, "I have been attending this church, the Upper Room Collective, for a while, and I noticed something nobody is saying." Clips played. Pastor Daniel saying marriage is easy. Then voices. People talking about how their stories were used in sermons. People started paying attention. Then he said something that changed everything. "One of the girls involved in all this is my sister," he said. His sister was bullied in school by Ada. Nobody believed her. Later, she got involved with Emeka. She was used, discarded. That was when he started watching that family, not as a fan, but as someone waiting. He exposed Emeka's atrocities. People were shocked. A pastor's son, a leader of his university fellowship. Some people did not believe it, and there were evidences of some of the evil acts he committed, like beating up his girlfriend, gambling, doing drugs. He also exposed Ada and everyone who she has ever bullied, intimidated and harassed, spoke up with chats and audio recordings where she threatened them. By then, the internet was on fire. The two of them were immediately suspended from school, and they had no choice but to delete all their posts on their social media pages. Pastor Daniel, on the other hand, had to step down from his pastoral duties, and they were not seen in church or online. Pastor Mrs. Rachel Daniels, who had not been seen all this while, suddenly uploaded a video to her page, and in the video, she said, "I was not beaten, I was not starved, I was not publicly disrespected, I was simply unheard. For years I smiled, I said we bless God, but I was performing. My husband preached love, but did not practice listening." Clips flashed in people's minds. Her smile, her words, her silence. She said, "Our son is lost and it was ignored. Our daughter is hurting others and it was dismissed. I spoke up, I cried, I begged, but my voice was inconvenient." The comments exploded. Everyone sympathized with her. They blamed Pastor Daniel. As a matter of fact, people who knew him before he became a pastor started coming out to talk. Some people said he was not always like this. He used to be a womanizer, very smooth, very convincing. He knew how to talk himself out of anything and everything. He just changed direction, but not everything inside him changed. People tried to ask her where she was, but she always deleted every comment that asked about her whereabouts, and that was the last they heard from Pastor Mrs. Rachel Daniel. The next Monday, the content creator dropped another video, but this time it was about Pastor Mrs. Rachel Daniel. He said, Mrs. Rachel did not just leave because she was tired. Everything she said was a lie. She was living two lives. The internet exploded. Rachel had been running a private network. At first, it looked like a support group for women, but it became something else. Connections, introductions, arrangements, women looking for escape, men looking for access, and Rachel was at the center of it all. Her network was not just a support group. Well, it started like that. Connections started forming. Rich men, married women, young girls, arrangements, money moving quietly. Some people called it help, but it was not clean. She used information, people's secrets, their pain, to build influence, to build something for herself. She wanted independence, power, something separate from Pastor Daniel, something separate from the Upper Room Collective. Some even said she was planning to start her own ministry. But everything got too deep, too fast. Money laundering, questionable connections, girls being introduced into lifestyles they did not fully understand. And Rachel was in the middle of it all. The content creator dropped receipts, transactions, voice notes, names. That was when it left social media and entered real life. Authorities got involved. She planned everything all along. She uploaded the video to make herself look good to the public. The final video dropped from the content creator. This time, there were evidences, transactions, messages of her selling young girls into prostitution and drugs, how she would organize a youth meeting, post on social media, and when it's time for the meeting, how some youths would get missing. At this point, she brought down the video she had initially posted and she tried deleting all traces that led back to her, but it was too late. This was no longer a small talk. This was no longer about the church. This was real life. The scandal was everywhere. Blogs, news, conversations from Abuja to Lagos to outside the country, the same way Pastor Daniel's sermons used to trend. This time, it was a scandal about the Daniel family. People started saying, now it makes sense, like father like son, like father like daughter. What a dysfunctional family. The Daniels family is very evil. Everything started connecting. Emeka was called in. At first, he acted like it was nothing until he saw the evidence. Then, fear set in. His girlfriend brought evidence of domestic violence. Ada broke down earlier. People in school had already turned against her. Even her friends avoided and stopped talking to her. And at home, domestic staffs resigned and also brought out evidence of how the children were always treating them in a bad way. And Rachel was nowhere to be found. But not for long. She tried to disappear quietly, but it did not work. Because money leaves trails, she was eventually caught quietly, the same way she had been operating. Investigations revealed everything. Her network, her role, her knowledge. She was not just a victim. She was part of it. She was questioned, then held accountable. No more "we bless God," no more quiet smiles. And that was how everything ended, not with one person to blame, but a house full of secrets finally coming into the light. The church could not survive it. Attendance dropped. Programs stopped. The image was gone. Pastor Daniel stood one last time before the congregation. No confidence, no laughter, just a man facing truth. He said, I thought I understood marriage. I thought I was helping people, but I failed where it mattered most. Some left because truth is not always comforting. Sometimes it exposes everything. And from that day, one sentence never came out of his mouth again. Marriage is easy. Because now he knew it was never that simple. And now, when people sit down and think about that family, they don't just ask what happened. They ask something else. How did everybody manage to go wrong at the same time? It was never just one person. It was all of them. And that's what makes it heavy. Because it means sometimes it's not one big mistake that destroys everything. It's the small things we ignore, the things we excuse, the things we allow over time, until one day there's nothing left to hold together. So, as you think about this story, think about the things we overlook in real life. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.